Hello, welcome to the 2027 Episcopal Diocese of Michigan budget hearing. This is our first of two offered via Zoom. This will be the noon offering at May 26th, 2026. Let us begin with prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for blessing us with gifts to run the ministries of this diocese. May we be good stewards of these gifts and help us in that mission. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We will get this presentation as along with the slides on our website as soon as we're done, and then we will also post this evening's as well. I will get us started. So the diocesan budget is overseen by the Mission Budget Committee. On the Mission Budget Committee, we have Michelle Wagaman, Terry Landreth, Jay Armstrong, and Kathleen Walworth, as well as myself, Chris Ventura, who's the CFO of the diocese and also the treasurer for council. Just a quick overview of our budget. Um, so the diocesan council budget, it oversees the use of just the general fund. And the general fund is primarily supported by our congregational payments through apportionment, which makes up about 67% of our overall budget. The next 24% is through our dividends and interest and our growth and income investments. So those are funds that we were given and we have invested in the trustees' growth and income fund. The other share is 9%, which is a perpetual trust income, which is our Tannehill distribution. And then we currently bucket our expenses into like four program groups. So we have congregational vitality, episcopate, public witness, and administration. A little bit more on that on the next slide. And then now, as we started to look at 2027, we developed a budget on a high level. We just went with our expense categories. So if you kind of think like salaries and healthcare, those get kind of lumped into what we call just like salaries and benefits. And we did not go down to a program level at this point. We just wanted to try to see where some of our total expenses were at. So what we did was we assumed a 4% COLA increase, which is it's kind of a sign of the times. We're still seeing some high inflation and high costs. This is based off one of the projections that the Social Security Administration has put out. So for the sake of this analysis, we went with 4%. We also did a 4% average on healthcare and the other insurance increases. This may actually be a little low. We'll have better information in September, but that's one we'll definitely keep an eye on. And then some of the extra funds, we also put increases in areas where we believe funds could be utilized. And we'll dig into some of that in the coming slides as well. So again, if you recall, 67% of our income is through apportionment. All that information is now collected via the supplemental parochial report. Last year for the 2024 collection, the Episcopal Church had adjusted how the parochial report collects the income data. So we had to put out a supplemental or supplemental parochial report so that we can get the data needed to calculate apportionments. We have just about every congregation in. There are one or two that are missing still. And then on top of that, there's some data corrections that I believe are needed on about 10 congregations or so. So I'm working with them, trying to get that. So for this, we adjusted as best as possible, just to give us, an initial um, income amount to look at. And moving on to the next slide. At this time, there are no participants. That's why I'm not asking for questions at this point. But if I do see some folks join in, I will be sure to ask question if there's questions. So going back to our budget program groups, right? This is how this is our current lineup. We keep talking about potentially tweaking these. Oh, I see somebody has joined. Hello, Jerry. All right, we'll continue on. And just since we have a guest in now, we this is being recorded, so we will get this posted on our homepage later this afternoon. Going back to the budget program group, so this is kind of currently how we have our budget broken out. We are looking to review that to see if there's a better way that we can present this, and track it, so it's more meaningful internally and externally. But this is how we currently sit. Um, Congregational vitality, that's made up of three main program groups. Congregational development, as a subgroup within that is our College for Congregation Development, the CCD program. We have our campus ministry programs, which are mainly University of Michigan and Michigan State. We also have our ministry with young people, which is the programs that Carmen puts out. On the Episcopate side, this is more kind of a administration, but on more a program type side. So it's not really overhead like administration where I fall. It's kind of program overhead. So this is mainly where like the bishop expenses fall in, and some required items. So in there we have our canonical items. For the diocese. We have our church-wide mission support. That's where we get like um, our tech assessment that we pay out falls out in there, and we also pay a little something to Province 5. Both of those fall in there. Episcopate General. So this is mainly where Bishop costs come in for her travels to congregations and support of congregations and whatnot. And then we have our diocesan convention. So that's the October uh, 2-day meeting where we all come together and review next year and just get everybody going. The next section is our public witness. So this is our advocacy ministries. So those are the grants that we did back in March timeframe. Communications, this is mainly Dennis Boyd and the support that he provides out of there, and just making sure everybody is up to date as to what some of the going ons in the diocese are. Then we have our sustainable development goals and companion diocesan relationships. So these are some other grants that we offer. We have our social ministry program. So those were the social ministry grants that we gave out in March, April timeframe that folks could apply for. And then we have our spirituality and race program. This is mainly Sister V. And then, like I said a little bit ago, this is our general overhead, our administration, just the items that we need to have to make sure, we're functioning properly and processing. So we have general administration and finance. So this is where our HR department falls in, our accounting team, and just some general staffing needs. So before I move on, are there any questions? Great. All right. So before we hop into our actual 2027 budget, I'll just give a quick update on where we are in 2026. So 2020, so if we kind of look at this real quick, these first four columns on the left, these are our actuals. So we have our income up top and then our expenses down below with a net surplus and deficit. 2025 has not yet been audited. So that's why we see a larger surplus down here because we'll have some year-end adjustments that we'll have to that we're holding off for. And then 2026 is through April 30th, as best as we can be. Before I start diving into it, let me just come over a couple columns. So these three are, or these two are our budget columns. So this is our full year budget for 2026 here in the light gray. And then in the white column sandwiched between the two gray bars is what our year-to-date budget is for April 30th, as of April 30th. And then the dark gray is our variance to budget. So it's our 2026 actuals compared to our year-to-date 2026 April 30th budget. And one thing to note on the budget is we did not typically in the past we kind of just did a full year budget and then allocated everything equally across every month. We tried to put some timing in place here, so that's why when we're looking at 2026 overall, there is not a surplus or deficit. If you recall, at convention we had passed a balanced budget. However, when you look at the year-to-date budget for April, we were forecasting to be behind about $48,000. So that's just based on some of some of our expenses happen earlier in the year, and some of our income comes in later. So while we look and say, oh, it's 48,000, again, this is based on a balanced budget. And as the year goes on, we'll see that number, start trending towards the balance. So now kind of talking about the variances on a high level real quick. Now somebody's going to say, okay, we see $145,000 deficit. Is that concern? That's a great question. It is not of concern. So the biggest thing that we have our miss on right now is our other income line. Um, so Tannehill usually pays in April. That's the large that's a large chunk. It's like 240,000 or so. That didn't come in until May. So on the budget side, it looks like we had a miss. But really, once we look at May, that'll wash itself out. And you'll see we're actually closer to probably about $100,000 better. So we're looking at a surplus at this point. With a big chunk coming from our congregational pledges have um, when we did the analysis for the budget, we didn't have all pledges in, so we had some increase on pledge side. And typically we get the first part of the year we're behind on receiving apportionment payments. So we factored that in on the budget side. So again, I expect that to come down some. But I think overall, if everything remains as is for 2026, we should be on the higher side as far as pledges coming in versus what we budgeted for. On the expense side, we're going to look at this office expense line, and I hope folks go, well, how are we spending $44,000 more on the budget and office expenses? Um, the one change we did in 2026, and we actually started, the last part of 2025 is the way we process our credit card, our internal credit card reimbursements. Previously, those sat on the balance sheet until all the credit card reports were in from folks. And we switched that, and now as credit cards are expenses come in at the end of every month from the bank, we book those to a line called it's un reconciled credit card expenses, and we just have that fall into office expenses at the time, just because that's when we see a big variance there, that's going to raise questions, and that way we can at least speak to it. So we're being transparent, at least on our expense side. And then as those expense reports get in, we'll get them reclassed. Typically, the charges will go to one of three lines. Conferences, meetings, and events are one of them. Our travel and related business line, or our equipment and software. Those are the top three. So if you notice, right, in each one of those, we are under budget. So as some of this items will move out into those lines, right, our total expenses are $25,000 better than our budget. So again, nothing of concern. Any questions before I move on? Okay. All right, so this brings us now to our 2027 draft. And again, let me just, so we put some actual numbers in here. So we have a full year of 2025, which is just essentially a copy from the prior page here, right? And then our 2026. And again, the 2026 number is just through April 30th. And then now we have our budget. So here's our 2026 budget. This is the full year budget. Again, a net surplus deficit of 0. And then in this, our light gray line are all the changes that we'll have. And then the dark gray is getting us to what our 2027 budget looks like as of today. So if we kind of just look through some of on the income side, right? The congregational pledges, it's looking like right now it might be about $114,000 increase year over year, which is a little bit higher than we've kind of seen on a percentage basis the last couple of years. So like I said, we're still kind of working with congregations to flush some of that out. But potentially we might have about $114,000 extra from 2026, from the 1.7 to get to the 1.8 in 2027. Dividends and interest. The trustees have not yet approved the dividend per share for 2027. That will happen sometime in September. We'll finalize the 20 quarter average through second quarter of 2026. So as of June 30th, but just projecting it as from what we see currently on the 19 quarters of actuals, the dividend per share might be about 38.84 cents. So using that based on the council investments, we would expect about a $25,000 increase there. And then the other one is 4,000 on the other income. Tannehill's, again, it's going to be a market-driven investment that pays out to us. So we're anticipating maybe about 4,000 differential there. So overall, we should see our income up about 143,000 to go from the 2.6 to the 2.8 $8 million range. Let me pause here. Are there any questions on income before I start to discuss some of the expenses? Okay, great. Let me hop down to expenses. So as I said earlier, if you were on, or as you heard in the replay, we did a 4% COLA and healthcare and insurance increase. So this works out to about 61,000. Um, we didn't have we left the plans as is. If you recall for 2026. Um, Diocesan staff moved to the max of the PPO 80 as the base plan, and then trying to push folks into the HSAs as well. Um, I think so far I haven't heard complaints, so I think things are going well. We do have a committee that's working on that, so I don't think I've seen a update from them at this point, but there could be changes um, going out for everybody, but we'll see what that committee comes out with. Um, we'll just go down the line. That was the major expense. Professional fees, we have about $2,000 increase estimated, right? We just expect our audit to go up. Just it typically goes up year over year. So we expect our council audit to be maybe about 17,000 for 2020. It'll actually be the 2026 audit year. But that expense will hit in 2027. Buildings and grounds, we're anticipating 26,000 there. Part of it is property insurance that's roughly, I don't want to say a known increase, because it's not known at this point, but we know that property insurance will go up. We estimated about 10% increase, so that's a increase of 2,000. And then the other item that we have there is our chapter maintenance fee, because we're kind of co-owners of the area we the space we use at the cathedral, just on um, the L-shaped building that's attached to it. Um, we haven't seen increases in a couple of years, so we do know that they're running with some expenses, and I think they've had some tight budgeting. So we anticipate potentially a $2,000 or so increase for the year per month, which would take us up to 17,000 a month, or $24,000 increase for the year. That hasn't been set yet, but we were just planning on that just to be safe at this point. And then hopping down to the next one, so office expenses, so just some of our general expenses. We're just maintaining our 26 budget at this point. We may have to dive into that some more as we start to really look into things, but at this point, we don't see that a need for an increase there. On the communications and PR side, so 2026, we didn't have anything budgeted. For 2027, we're going to add in about 5,000, just for some potential marketing campaigns. If you recall, think like the freeway signs we did back at around Christmas time in 2025. So just we set something aside there for that. One of the larger line items is our conferences and meetings and events. We are anticipating a little bit of an increase there as well. So our Civil Rights Pilgrimage, so that one this year, we ran with a smaller group, which worked out better. But unfortunately, you can't bring down all of the costs necessarily. It's not on a necessarily like a direct proportional, per person per rate variable. So we do expect maybe a little bit of added cost there. Convention is potentially going to have some added cost. And then just some miscellaneous diocesan events that we'd like to make sure we plan for. So if you recall hearing, like we had the governor's forum and gun violence, we hosted at the cathedral a couple weekends ago. So we just want to make sure we're able to offer those events as well going forward. And then looking at cost share and registration fees. So this is this is income essentially that we collect from folks for participation. So for CCD, folks pay a share for that. At convention, folks pay a share for meals. Um, and a lot of times, a lot of our events have at least a partial cost offset that we collect just to help offset some of those overall costs. We left that flat for the year. Denominational support, we expect that to be up about 16,300, and that's just our projected tech support. Tech is the Episcopal Church, so that's essentially our apportionment that we pay, and that's formula driven. So it's basically it'll take our 2026 income, um, and then I think we get like a credit of 200,000 was last year's formula, and then we pay 15% of that. Um, and then travel and business, we anticipate that to be relatively flat year over year. But again, as cost increases, we anticipate like a mileage reimbursement will increase. So we did budget a little bit of an increase there. And then on the grants and partnership side, so this is mainly our social services and advocacy grants. We put in an additional 16,000 there at this time. We had overwhelming um, requests for social service and advocacy, so we had to adjust those payments this year a little bit. So for right now, again, based on where we're at income wise, we'd like to be able to offer, a little bit more additional support there. So that's a $16,000 increase anticipated year over year. And then on the equipment and software side, we're expecting about 2,000 increase there. That's just some of the software programs that we use and their year over year increases that we're anticipating. Um, which again, so that brings us to a net surplus again of in 2027 of a balanced budget. And that's kind of where we sit right now. So unless there's any questions, that is really all I had. So thank you for your time. Um, again, this will get this posted on our website this afternoon. And then we will also hold a 7 o'clock um, call and we'll review it again. And as you're looking at the attachment, I just put up the last slide is it just has all the years in the budget. Just it's a little bit smaller slide, but it has all the information on one page that we just kind of went over. So that may be helpful for you as well. Outside of that, oh, I think we just have a question in chat. And one thing of note is there were no resolutions that were presented which would have any impact on the budget. All right. If there are no other questions, I will end the recording and we'll talk to you all at 7 o'clock. Thank you. Have a great day.